I have to be thankful to be invited to this August occasion to an event called Culinary Action, because action has been seen as a prerogative of those who supposedly make direct change. I'm glad to hear your rector also mention educating you as agents of change, because it's, on the one hand, quite a broad label, but on the other hand, with quite specific objectives attached to that label. Whom do we act with is going to be the general frame of the talk for you today. I'd like to start with a little buzz session, so just with the one sitting next to you, just spend 30 seconds on who was involved in your breakfast today, just with each other. Okay, thank you. That was quite animated. Oh, I can see it's a very active student community that you have here. So I started off with saying that action has been seen as a prerogative of change agents, and we see them in the form of those who take part in social movements, activists, do-gooders, innovators, and entrepreneurs. I myself describe myself as a social entrepreneur, and I am a design educator in Sweden as well. I head a master's program in design for sustainability and transdisciplinarity. Food is one of the major topics that I bring in to the classroom also. And so Root Food is a project that I started 4.5 years ago in Malmö, which is a city in the south of Sweden. And I live across the sea in Copenhagen, so it's just about half an hour train ride. And we call Root Food Sweden's first food waste catering service. And we've been asked to reflect on the term food waste, because this is one of the settings of our catering service. This is in the Swedish embassy in Copenhagen at one of their annual events, and the menu looked like this. Crackers made of raw juice pulp, topped with the salsa of pineapple habanero, grilled portobello on the side with a cornbread baked with apple and onions, coffee ground brownies, and then ended with fair trade coffee. 95% of the menu is rescued foods. 100% is organic. All of it was cooked by, well, non-professional chefs. All of those who take part in Root Food Malmö. And that's us plating the menu on the side. I mean, as you can read, each item on this menu can sort of give you an indication of the symptoms of food waste. So with a raw juice pulp cracker, it is how far can you make your ingredients go? So if you make juice out of fruits or vegetables, you can take the pulp and put it in the dehydrator, and you get the most delicious crackers out of it. The second one, pineapple habanero salsa. I call this the pineapple syndrome in the supermarkets. I mean, you're in South Europe, you are more, you have more seasonal fruits and vegetables in your supermarket, but in the Nordics, pineapple syndrome means that no matter what time of the year it is, you can find a pineapple on the shelf. What does that entail in terms of seasonality? The portobello, these ones were rescued from an organic food fair, but you can very well grow your own. Apple onion cornbread was a way to bring together these ingredients that we had rescued. So to be innovative with your recipe. Apples and onions are not generally seen in cornbread, but if you put it there, it works well. So it's about testing, experimenting. Coffee ground brownies is about how you involve different agents. So 2 days before the catering event, I went, so this was at the Swedish Embassy in Copenhagen, yeah? I went to different fair trade coffee chains in Copenhagen, and I said, after you have extracted the coffee out of your ecological coffee grounds, can we have them? We got a kilo on the morning of the event, and then we made brownies with those coffee grounds. Fair trade coffee. An importer had ordered containers full of coffee, and then they later found out that there was 1 0 extra in their order. So they approached us and said, can you take that extra 0 that was not ordered for? And then we had our warehouse full of coffee grounds that had lost its way between the exporter and the importer. So what I have described, how we describe what we do is food rescuing. And if you were to look for kind of the history of rescued foods, this is the kind of picture you would get. Raise your hands, how many of you have heard of dumpster diving? Okay, so dumpster, the garbage bins that you see outside supermarkets and outside your homes. This is from the website of Rob Greenfield. He's a food activist, and this is him and his buddy dumpster diving. And you can see it's perfectly, they look fine, the fresh vegetables over there. If you go to his website, you'll see him sort of laying out entire sidewalks of dumpstered foods. And dumpster diving is seen as an illegal act still, but what I would like us to do is go back sort of to the history of food rescuing. And in the end of the 1980s, in the rise of the anti-globalization movement, you had freeganism, a social movement that started that of which dumpster diving was one sort of manifestation, which was about getting fed up with overconsumption and overproduction and conceptualizations of growth as being perpetual. And so dumpster divers or freegans then started taking matters into their own hand and acting sort of on the fringes of mechanisms of production, started visiting the garbage bins outside supermarkets. And there are some dumpster divers who only live out of dumpster dive foods. If you were to visit their Facebook group or community pages, dumpster diving groups have a protocol that they share. Always leave the dumpster in a better state than you found it. Always take only that which you need. If you leave more than you need, let the other dumpster divers know. So these protocols of solidarity amongst activists who supposedly are working illegally on the fringes of the main cycles of production have such sort of collaborative behavior amongst them. It's something to learn from. When we first started Root Food 4.5 years ago, a lot of dumpster divers came thinking we were dumpster diving when we were rescuing foods. Root Food, I'm afraid, does not dumpster dive. Our food rescues look something like this. This is in one of Europe's largest organic food fair called the Nordic Organic Food Fair. And you can see Johannes on the there. There are about 250 exhibitors all over Europe. They converge into Malmö for 2 days. And at the end of 2 days, you have to sign in these customs form when you bring in material and then when you take them out. So instead of going through the red tape of having to fill those forms again, the exhibitors prefer to leave their exhibited wares. It would have gone to the dustbin, and it did the first year. But the second year, we approached the organizers and we said, here, give it to us. And it turned out what started off as a handshake agreement has now turned into an annual affair. And I'm glad to say that every year, the amount of food that we rescue from the same fair has been decreasing. Whether it's about the exhibitors gaining more awareness or consciousness about how much they bring in, or whether it's about they have found better ways to, or they have changed, the composition of who is exhibiting. Last year, we rescued 2 tons in one night with the help of 25 volunteers. So this is at the end of a whole night of visiting 200 kiosks and, gathering what they had left behind. It's an exhausting affair, but it's also very invigorating. Yeah, and volunteers get a bag of the food that we rescue at the end of the day. So about 30 to 40% of the rescued foods are fresh foods, fruits and vegetables, and then it's dried colonial, and it's all organic. The depressing picture is 30% of the food worldwide goes to waste, like Helena just mentioned. About 70% of the food that circulates through the supermarket chain goes to waste. And what do we describe as waste here? Food that is perfectly edible. Yeah, so that's what we, food that is perfectly edible but still ends up in the bin is what we are seeing as waste. But on the other hand, this is the bright part, there is an increase in entrepreneurs working with food waste. In Sweden alone, apart from Root Food Malmö, and from the time that we started, at the same time, there has been rescued fruits, which collects foods from containers out of a shipping city, Helsingborg, and then makes juice out of it. There is Soup Kök, another catering service in Stockholm that came and learned our procedures and then established, so we don't keep business secrets. I believe in Spain, there is a huge solidarity between citizens' forums and cities. So, for example, in Galdaco, in Bilbao, there are solidarity fridges that restaurant owners keep on the streets. So the restaurant owners keep, pack the leftover foods at the end of the day and keep it in the fridge with a date label so that whoever wants can come and get it. And it's usually at night that the food needy comes and opens the fridge, because there is still this shadow of shame associated with being food needy. So of the foods that we rescue at Root Food, about 60% we give away to the food needy in Malmö. This is a food recovery hierarchy and it's by the Environmental Protection Agency in the US. I'm just going to, so they say that in terms of saving food waste, you first need to find a way for businesses to reduce their waste. Businesses, I'm afraid, have been hiding or even perhaps being not aware of how much waste, or not being conscious of how much waste our processes produce. Then the second preferred route for food waste is to feed the hungry people and then feed the animals find industrial uses for it, like recycling cooking oil for biofuels, compost it, and then landfill. So what we're trying to do is to make sure that the food does not end up in the landfill, but goes through these layers, preferably in this order. And where root food works is here. Yeah? I did speak about whom do we act with. I'm sure we've spoken about farmers and cooks and supermarkets, the retail chain. These are two teachers from a high school in Malmö called Värnhemsskolan, and they have an entire semester for the high school children devoted to food waste. One of our, this is John, he's now earned at least 2 scholarships from Swiss chef academies. And he was one of our most vociferous volunteers in the kitchen. And he would look at our shelf and say, oh, we have oat flours and we have apples. Okay, I'm going to make you rose apple muffins today. He was just magic in the kitchen. These are 2 farmers from an organic farm outside, 1 kilometer outside Malmö. And they brought in 300 kilos of potatoes in their truck when they heard that we were open to receiving surplus. It happens, and we have a catering, and we have so much of one ingredient in our storage. Everything on the menu is that ingredient, yeah? So if you're a client that ordered after a 300 kilo potato rescue, you would get potato this, potato that, potato dessert, yeah. This is an artist who has been making a collage out of our rescued fruits, Marie Jonsson. And when we do get, things that need to find a way into a recipe, our sort of go-to dish is the dumpling, because you can hack it and pack it. Especially when you're working with a group of non-professional chefs in the kitchen. With our catering clients, we invite them to our kitchen sometimes to cook along with us. This is the staff at IKEA, or perhaps you know them as IKEA. This is the communication and creative department. And so this is for one of their lunches. They send in their staff to cook, and then we take it over to their workplace. And then while they're eating, we talk about specifically what you spoke with each other about. Who is the one behind? Who are you? Who is bringing your food to the table? The banana is the most wasted food product when it comes to the fresh foods. It's because of unfair labor practices, mostly. And so we really needed to find a way to innovate with that. And so one of the entrepreneurs associated with Root Food tried to launch a frozen all-natural fruit ice cream chain. So this has been made with bananas and purple cabbage, topped with dried lavender flowers, all rescued, of course. And we've collaborated with packaging design students to come up with a package for the banana ice cream, a doggy bag. So these are the communities that have recognized by giving awards to Root Food. And I'm listing them here to show whom can you draw into your work, apart from this direct look at the consumer. Because remember what I said, if as a catering client you come in and ask for catering and we have potatoes and all you get is potatoes, and not only that, we don't tell you what you're going to get in your menu. We just say, you're going to get your fill. You're going to get your money's worth. Yeah? And it might be that if you're a group of 100, then 30 of you get something and 70 of you get something else. So here is sort of a reclaiming of the consumer as king. status. Because remember, we do not want to work with the pineapple syndrome of having everything all the time. So just to point out, this is the gastronomy community in the south of Sweden who have awarded us in the last 2 years. And this is the regional authority who gave us a prize in the environment category. And this is, you also have an entrepreneur competition here, right? So this is a national sort of startup competition for new ideas, and we won the South Regional Challenge. So just to see what kinds of publics you bring together, and this is known as infrastructuring. How can you, through your project, constitute new composition of publics around your work? The media has helped a lot. I realized then Baba is on the board of BCC, and then we are discussing his work with food waste in this article. Just to show you the kind of sort of structural change that is occurring, this is the mandate of the Food and Livestock Management or Authority in Finland. And if you look at the parts in red, the stringent attitude to what constitutes edibility is shifting. You know the difference between best before and expiry? Yeah, more or less. And so, I mean, expiry is like, so you can't really mess around with that, but best before date you can. And these are the food monitoring authorities that have said that if you freeze the foods, then you can donate them. It's also said that the raw materials, you can use them a day after it has expired if you're a charity organization. And if your food is labeled wrong, you can still deliver it. Again, this is for charity organizations. Thank you. A food that has been on a buffet table can be, again, donated the same day after, blasting it to be chilled. So, yeah, at Root Food, we right now work under, a board. So I am on the board. And I started off with being the dishwasher, the cook, the accountant, along with anywhere between 20 to 350 volunteers. Right now, we have a cook that is on hire at 60%, and we can have catering for up to 300 to 500 portions in a month. It depends. And then our clients are both from the private and the public sector within Malmö. Those were the numbers for you. So we're not making a dent in this big 30% statistic, but if you ask me what we're contributing with is in whom we think and eat and act with. So the point in having you do that buzz with each other is to think about where we as humans are in the way the planet functions, because we are at the stage, well, the sort of the hyped term has been the Anthropocene, where as humans we have been very much playing a large role in how the planet functions. So as entrepreneurs, perhaps we need to think of ourselves as one that is transitioning to thinking with and acting with the environment in the decisions that we make, in the structures that we build. So I'm nowadays looking more into from social entrepreneurship to what is called ecopreneurship. And I'd like to have a few minutes for question and answer, if there are any. Doesn't seem like. Okay. Or?
Hello? We're a bit shy at the beginning in Spain, aren't we? At the beginning, I said, you see? Give them some minutes, give them some seconds. There's a question here, Zeenath. There, this lady here.
Yes.
With my same haircut, by the way.
Tack så mycket, Zeenath. Det där var jättebra. Eskerrik asko.
Eskerrik asko.
So, how many people are you working in this project? I am a farmer, agriculturalist. So I don't come from the gastronomical side of things, as most of the people. So you say you have a cook?
Yes.
70%.
Yeah, so you're saying how many are actively involved within the project, yeah?
Yeah, so it is not a company, so to speak.
It's an ideal for rating. It's a not-for-profit. So we spoke about it a lot. And in Sweden, you can set up as an economic association, as a not-for-profit association, as a for-profit association that brings the profits back into the company. So not to work in this mode of perpetual, scaling up. Thank you for the question. Because we have, when we put in our application to the entrepreneurship competition, we did go into this matter of what it means to scale up when one is thinking along with the environment. And we said something very controversial to the competition organizers when they asked us, what is your objective? And we said, our objective is to shoot ourselves in the foot, to not exist anymore. And that was quite derogatory or opposite to what is considered sort of the aim for enterprise. Yeah, and if you're thinking together, you need to come up with new business models to work together. And so to answer your question, how many we are, on the board, we are 5, of which 3 put in actively 3 to 5 hours per week. We have a cook in the kitchen who puts in 60%. We have a volunteer force that goes around rescuing the foods, and they earn by the foods that they rescue, a part of it. And then besides that, there's this whole network of other organizations for distributing to the food needy. Yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you for your question.
Lycka till.
Okay.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
First of all, that's, in my opinion, you do a really great job for the society and for the world, for the future. And I want to ask you, you said that the client now is not the king. Now the products give you the way that give you the information and the final answer to the client's needs. And it's the product that tells you what are you going to eat, when are you going to eat it. And my question is, has any time happened that you don't have enough product to give an event, and how you solve it?
Yeah, I mean, we can make a menu out of potatoes, but we still need salt, oil, sugar, and all that. So there was a time, at least in the first year, when 10% of the menu we had to buy. Like, we actually do go and buy from the supermarket. So we had to be quite strategic in terms of whom and where we rescue from. So we need, we need the dry goods, you need the perishable commodities to come up with a full-sized, rounded menu. But we are still lacto-vegetarian and vegan because we do not feel, it's a very democratic organization, and it depends on who the active members are at any moment in time. So we do have meat eaters, and then like in the organization, where we feel that if the food takes more out of the environment, then we do not want to perpetuate that habit through our menu. Coming to your point about the consumer as king, the consumer, what I mean by that is the consumer is not at the center of activity. It's about draw the figure of collaboration where you put the environment as one of the actors as well. Give agency not only to yourself as an entrepreneur, but also to your environment. And you sort of formulated that correctly as the product dictating what is put out there. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Zeenath, sorry for interrupting, but we're a little bit behind schedule. So no, stay here with me. Excellent presentation. I didn't know about this pineapple syndrome. I'm very impressed. And the banana, the poor banana. You know, we have the banana de Canarias. El plátano canario is fantastic. I wouldn't think anybody throwing it away. Anyway, let me tell you that one of the things, before you leave, that when I was coming here last night, somebody I met in the plane, on the plane, told me that one of the best things about this Foro, this meeting, the international one, it's meeting some of the international speakers. So are you going to be around? Are you going to be around today for people to ask you any more questions if they are?
Yes.
She's going to stay until when?
2:30.
2:30.
At this room.
Okay, guys. So she's going to be around if there are any more questions. Sorry for interrupting. Let's give her a round of applause. Zeenath Hasan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.